Ladies and gentlemen, the Bitcoin price is getting crazier and crazier as we are rolling into the weekend, with obviously the S&P falling over the past couple of days and Bitcoin having a beautiful retest of one of its most crucial support levels. But the situation is still as follows. We right now are waiting for a massive sort of breakout right here. And as the Bitcoin halving is coming closer, and like I said, we are headed back into a weekend with a potential CME gap to fill, things could be getting pretty volatile. So if you're not done yet, make sure you press that like button. Anyway, guys, one thing I really want to quickly make clear is that if you zoom out, it all still makes sense. All the troubles, all the discussions we're having right now are really short-term things. The only thing you might be guessing about is whether or not people are trying to front-run the Bitcoin halving, and is it only 2 weeks out. And what that might be is that people right now are buying massively, or have done so in the recent past, with the idea there being that, historically speaking, Bitcoin goes for a crazy all-time high a little bit into the halving, right? These lines right here being the halvings, and obviously this being a 4-year period right here, which we often call a cycle. So it goes for a crazy shoot upwards, where it hits a new all-time high, then goes for about an 85% or so decline. And then as the next halving basically comes along, the price slowly starts building up, but only about, I'm gonna say a couple months in, about a third or so in to the halving, it breaks the previous all-time high before then jolting on to make a new all-time high over the next few months, before again declining roughly 85%, going sideways with a slight upwards bias until slightly before the halving, whereas this was a black swan event though. It could have actually been that had the whole corona situation not happened, that the prices would have already gone up quicker. But still, the way it happened right now in this cycle here, as you can see, in previous times, we only broke the all-time high a little bit into the halving, like right around there. Our expectation was September of this year. But the fact that we already hit it like a few weeks ago is making people think perhaps people have recognized the pattern, and so they've started to buy in along before the ride. And my expectation is, well, even if that were to be the case, if we take a look at the history here, it was only after the all-time high that things went pretty exponential, pretty crazy. And in the previous cycles also. The all-time high was never the end point, it just kept on going, with the all-time high being the first major barrier. Historically speaking, we also saw it being pretty contested. For example, the all-time high here was, I'm going to call it about $1,200 or so. We can see that right here in these candles, we hit roughly $1,350 before having a pretty juicy correction of roughly 40% before continuing on with the rally. And here as well, we hit the level. We came down, I'm going to say about 20% or so before continuing on. And that right now, at this stage here, is also, for that matter, not too wild to basically not continue on at once. And as I said before, in this little time span here, we still have got time. I'd say the worst thing you can be right now in a situation like this is in a hurry. Because when taking a look at the Bitcoin ETF flows, it's still extremely positive regardless of some of the outflows that we've been seeing. Yes, there are a few days of some additional outflows, but is that really bad? Is that a bad thing? More specifically, over the past couple of days, they've been pretty positive again. And ultimately, one of the only ones that's really seen consistent outflows is Grayscale. But I think that could also be because these guys are moving to other funds which have lower fees, or because they were stuck for so long, they just want the liquidity because they're up so much on their investments. It would also make sense. Now, with regards to short-term price action, it's been extremely volatile the past couple of days. Then again, we are still consolidating in this bigger pattern. And we're for the most part just waiting for the massive breakout to happen towards either side. Either, this is what we said before, either we are going to have a pretty significant dip, we're going to fall pretty significantly lower, or it's going to finally be the breakout where we breach these previous all-time highs, this previous shenanigans of going up ever so slightly titty bitty bitties, and we're finally go on our monstrous rally, or like stated before, the $60,000 level. It ain't that hard to get a pullback towards 60, 59,000. We get a lot of long positions in, we order up and we prepare ourselves for the way upwards eventually, because once more, it is only a matter of time. And I personally do not think that Bitcoin will ever go below $40,000 again. So for me, it's all very simple. If we right now go to 60, 59,000, I'm opening up some massive long positions. As described in my video yesterday, I said we're basically going to lower our way down, meaning if we do fall below 59,000, it's going to really be some significant additions to the portfolio, because with the institutions joining so massively, I don't think there's any way we can fail. And again, I personally use either OKX or Bybit. Links for both of those are down below if you want to do this with or via bots, I should say. It's pretty simple to set up. I've described it a couple of times before, but what it basically does is it buys at some point, and then as it goes a certain percentage down lower, I've just picked 2% here, but you can also do 1%. It tries to buy more and buys to buy more, so you don't have to put in manual orders. And then as the price goes up, it tries to sell that. This bot, for example, I started up what, 3 days? Yeah, here you can see 3 days ago with a couple $1,000s available. It almost never will use that, but it's available, and it's already in $220 worth of profit, so roughly 3.something%. So let's just say it's making about 1% a day right now, which is definitely not too shabby. Of course, though, this is a smaller size, meaning that, you know, you can't just do this with $50 billion and expect it to work. But with the minimal sizes that we're doing, it's pretty solid, because in this case here, the only risk you've got is that the market switches over, that it gets to a downwards trending market for a longer period of time. And so you might ask, Dusty, why would you put more in the bot? Because this is a YouTube bot. This is just to show you guys what I think most people watching this video will be able to do and achieve. And like I said, over on Bybit, it's pretty similar. The only problem is Bybit has some more limited functionalities, but it's basically the futures martingale bot over on there. I've also left the link to Bybit down below for some crazy bonuses. If you're not done yet, make sure you press that like button, by the way. But I think for this bot that I set up just yesterday, I think one of the settings is wrong, because when looking at it, I think it's trying to sell at 77,000, which is obviously way too high. But the other bots are still working flawlessly. Again, we put $100 in, got $300 in the profit on this one, $100 in, $170 in the profit, $105 in, and $200 in the profit. And it's so extremely simple. It's like one click. And again, this will keep working throughout the entire bull market. The only thing you have to know is when to stop. And that point is basically when you think that Bitcoin is not going to be trending higher for much longer. Now, there is something else to discuss though, and that is that over on the daily time frame, it looked very much as if the CME gap got filled. But if you take a look at over on the 4-hour, there's definitely a little bit of room to go down for Bitcoin, and some people are basically waiting for the price to touch this lower edge at roughly 64,000 before they start getting bullish, as the gap needs to be bridged. The only caveat being that over on a daily chart, the way it's currently looking, the filling of the gap here does make a lot of sense. You know, this 12-hour gap right here. And I'd say that if we have to fill the entire CME gap on like a 4-hour, it's looking more as if we actually just continuing with a breakout towards the downside, with again some significantly lower targets as a result. Once more, guys, every single move though is being amplified now that Bitcoin is getting so close to halving. And if I had to pick, I'd still say that my bias is very much towards the upside. Bitcoin seeks liquidity, and the majority of it is at around 72,000, which would basically be this top right here, which I think would be a very low target for an actual breakout of sorts of the triangle here. Then again, as a lot of you guys rightly pointed out, if we go down, it could be a pretty long way down as like a last flush out of sorts. But again, it just makes less and less sense as Bitcoin keeps getting picked up here. The institutions are still buying. The Bitcoin halving is coming closer and closer. Liquidity is mostly centered towards the upside, and historically, it has always been a very bullish moment here. If in doubt, again, just zoom out, and that's about it.